All right. So, all right. Hello, everyone. So, welcome. Uh, so, I'm trying to give a bit more time for others to join us. Let's give a bit more time. All right, let's start. So, welcome everybody in today's session. Welcome. So, it's good to have everybody on the call. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on wherever you are joining from. So, you can as well comment whether you are streaming from YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, anywhere you are streaming from. You just drop a comment where you are joining us from. Let's see the people that are joining us. right? So welcome everybody. I can see. All right, you have more people on the call now. You have more people on the call. Right. So I'm delighted to have everybody on the call today. Right. I'm your moderator for today, and in today's session, we'll be learning about the latest updates for automatic target weights and mutual authentication for application and load balancing. And I mean, we already have amazing speaker on the call already in the name of Mr. Okeme David Eseme. So I believe most of us will already know him. I mean, he have been engaging with us, right? So he currently works as an associate DevOps engineer. I mean, he's one professional that everybody would want to listen to, right? So he's a skilled professional, right? With promising future in cloud, DevOps, engineering, and blockchain, a whole wide knowledge, right? So without wasting much time, I don't know if we should give more time, right? We've already waited like 7 minutes, and I mean we have people on the call already. So, so I think our speaker, right? So let's wait a bit, right? So let's give more time for others to join in, because I mean we don't want to miss this, even though the session is recorded. If you have us on YouTube, should be able to watch our recordings on YouTube. And I believe all this will be uploaded, right? For those that want to be part of our team, the AWS West Africa group, right? You could as well join us, check us out on Twitter, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, everywhere basically. You see us, we get our recordings. If you want to be part of the team, you could as well join us. So basically 2 minutes. Let's wait for 2 more minutes for others to join in, right? So remember to comment wherever you are joining from. If you are joining from UK, from Nigeria, what part of Nigeria? I mean, I know we have a whole lot of audience in Nigeria and UK. So what part of UK are you joining from? What part of Nigeria are you joining from? Yeah, I'm in Lagos, Nigeria, right? So I mean, you could just comment where you are streaming from, right? If you are joining from outside Nigeria, outside UK, you could as well comment where you are streaming from basically. So it's good to have everybody on the call. I could see more people are joining. Welcome, 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 welcome. Right, welcome. Remember, you could always join the team if you want to be part of the AWS West Africa group. You can join us. Then you're on LinkedIn, you're on Instagram, right? Then comment where you are joining from. It's very important. I mean, we want to know everybody, want to get to know you, want to get to know where our audience is coming from. So while we are waiting for others to join in, while we wait for others to join, so I would like to know where are you joining from. You comment where you're joining from. Are you excited to be in this session today? I mean, you could as well let us know. Right. So right, welcome everybody, welcome everybody, welcome everybody. So we'll be starting shortly, right? 1 more minute and we will be starting depending on how many people that have joined us, right? So it's already time. So let's be done. All right, it's 7:10, right? So welcome everybody. Like I said earlier, our topic for today will be learning about the latest updates for automatic target rate and mutual authentication for application load balancing. And at this point, I will leave the floor for our amazing teacher, for our amazing speaker, basically, to come up. So let me.
Hi,
All right,
hi,
so Mr. David, yes, it's good to have you on the call. Yes, sir.
hi, Odinaka. How you doing? Okay, all right, guys. All right, welcome everyone to today's session. And today we're talking about. I'm just gonna be very straightforward today. We're not doing much practicals, but we want to share information with you about automatic target weights and mutual authentication for application load balancers. And So we would cover what automatic target weights actually means for those who actually do not know what that means, and also cover mutual authentication. But before we go into all of that, we need to understand what a load balancer is, because that's the crux of this presentation today. And I'll go to my next slide. So here we're talking about application load balancers. Yes. So an application load balancer is a type of load balancer in in the cloud or in any networking load or scenario, right? So there are different types of load balancers. There's the classic load balancer, there's the network load balancer, and then there's the application load balancer, which is what we want to talk about today. And an application load balancer has an acronym called ALB. So an ALB is a type of load balancer used to distribute incoming application traffic across multiple targets. So as you can see in the image there, the top right, on the left hand side, we have the client side. On the right hand side, we have the server side. So on the client side, we have users trying to access the internet. So once there's that request there, the internet that from once there's that request there. From there, it gets to the DNS, and then gets to the load balancer. Now, that load balancer does the job of actually distributing traffic. So you can, on your server side, you can have several servers depending on the load of the traffic, hosting your application, right? And for you to be able to successfully or if efficiently distribute the traffic into those servers or nodes in your server side, you need a load balancer to do that. And to do that for your application, you need an application load balancer. So when we talk about multiple targets, we are talking about EC2 instances, we are talking about containers, we're talking about IP addresses. Those are the targets that we are talking about here, which is usually on the server side of everything. And I'd like to let you know that application load balancers operate at this layer 7 application layer. That's the layer 7 of the OSI model. If you know a lot about networking, you know there are different layers, and layer 7 is one of the high layers, and that's where the ALBs operate. So the ALB helps improve the availability, scalability, and fault tolerance of applications by evenly distributing traffic among healthy targets. Like I explained that earlier. So the LT targets are your EC2 instances, the containers or the IP addresses. So what it's trying to do is to improve availability, scalability, and fault tolerance by distributing traffic, right? So it also supports advanced features like path-based routing, SSL termination, and it integrates very well with AWS services because this is a part of AWS ecosystem. So it's ideal to use the services within the ecosystem to perform your operations. Okay, so my next slide here shows an example of a should I say, a well architected framework of a solution, right? This just explains what I was actually talking about. So on the client side is where you have the users coming from your laptop, your phone, or whatever devices they're using to hit your application. And then you see we have two availability zones, which are in a specific region, right? So just so you know, the availability zone works across all the VPCs and the VPC, right? So the VPC is actually spread across two availability zone, AZ1, AZ2, right? So in that AZs, we have the target groups. Now the target group is basically just a collection or a group of instances that you can actually target. Right. So in this case, we have the blue target group and the green target group, right? These are two different target groups. And once traffic comes in from the client side, which is the user, it hits the load balancer, and the load balancer therefore distributes the traffic via inside that VPC, inside that network to specific targets. So there is an algorithm, or there are different algorithms that actually does the distribution of traffic. We'll get to that. So yeah, so we're talking about automatic target weights. right? So we want to now define a service, right? A new feature that AWS has, which is the automatic target weight. How does it imply in terms of distributing traffic via a load balancer, right? So first thing we need to know is that ATW is actually a feature, right? It is a feature it's a very new feature of a load application load balancer that dynamically adjusts the distribution of incoming network across targets based on their health and capacity. So this is an algorithm, right, that then distributes traffic based on two major things. There are other variables that you can use to define how it's going to distribute traffic, but two of the most common one is basically the health and the capacity of each target, right? So if you look at this image, the diagram in between, there's a VPC. The VPC has a load balancer and there are two target groups, right? Ooh, I just hope I added. It's supposed to good is there. Okay, so let's talk about this. So on the left hand side, you see an X percent. On the right hand side, you see a Y percent. Now we're trying to weigh the odds here. Now, where should this application load balancer know where to distribute traffic to? Do you get? So where should I distribute the traffic to? That's where the algorithm comes to check the health and then check the capacity. That now would now determine where should I distribute the traffic to. Our next slide will talk more about that, but these are some of the benefits that you have from the AT application, sorry, the ATWs, right? You have the dynamic load distribution is something it does. It improves the application performance. These are the benefits of why you should have them. Yeah, it has real-time adjustments, right? As soon as traffic comes, it knows exactly where to push them to based on some specific constants or variables. So it's better. It has better fault tolerance. It enhances scalability and it improves application availability. These are the things that cloud services would give you on a normal ground. Now we're taking that a step further with this new feature called automatic target weights. So in this image here, we're not talking about workflow, right? Real life scenario. How's this thing gonna play out? What's the workflow? How does it work? So in this diagram, we start with number one. We see that there's a CloudWatch alarm that is set. So that CloudWatch alarm, once it's triggered through the events bridge, it sends a Lambda function where it goes to number two. So the application load balancer target groups, right, is in that's where the Lambda function is. Now that Lambda function, which is the ALB, now has like three other ways to distribute the traffic. Now this is what's going to happen. On the green one, we see that the state of that target group, which is the machine set of machines or IPs, the state is in steady state. So it's basically doing nothing. It's just free. And then we have the red one, which is overloaded, meaning that's the state. There's a lot of traffic sent to it. And then it's trying to balance itself using the action of load shedding. You know what load shedding is. You're just trying to distribute. Once it notices that the state is overloaded, it will then distribute traffic to another target group, right? Which is what we have on the orange side there, which the state is underloaded. So because there's overload in the red target group, it starts load shedding and sending some of the load to the the underloaded state, which is on the far right hand side, and restored load. That's the action that gets there. So in that case, that's what's going on there. Do you get? And then distributes that traffic to the endpoint, which is supposed to be an Amazon SQS. Do you get? So that's how we just basically, uses an algorithm, an internal algorithm to verify which target group is best to distribute the traffic based on its own state of that target group, right? We said that earlier is either the health or the capacity. So if one of the target group is unhealthy, you don't expect the ALB to start sending requests there, right? So that's what I'm saying. Next slide. Mutual authentication. Hmm. Mutual authentication is now what we want to talk about, which is really about how they communicate. So, mutual authentication, also known as a two-way authentication system, is a security process. All right. So, keyword security process that establishes trust between clients and application load balancers. I think I have a diagram somewhere. Let's see first. Okay, this is the diagram. We'll come back to this. Let's just go back. So we know that for there, what you let's go back to one more diagram so I can explain from there. Let's go back to this. Yes. So we see there that let's go back first again. Oh, okay, this. So if you look at this image here, client side, server side, what the clients are connecting to is the internet. What the internet is connecting to is the load balancer. The load balancer then distributes traffic to the endpoint, right? Case established. This image here shows the same thing that client straight to the application load balancer. So in between that process of the client sending information to the application load balancer, there needs to be some authentication going on. How does this the load balancer trust the client? How does the client trust the load balancer? Security, right? Authentication. That's what clouds give you. So it leads us back to mutual authentication. Now you have a better understanding of what we're talking about here, right? That there needs to be a mutual authentication, some kind of security measure in between the client and the load balancer. Right. So that's what we defined there. So MTLS concept. So TLS is the transport layer. That's how you actually communicate HTTP, HTTPS would send messages via TLS, right? That protocol. So there's the MTLS, which is the mutual transport layer security, right? So that extends what we have the TLS. There's a TLS normally, the TLS protocol. So this extends TLS and uses a secure network communication. So TLS is commonly used to establish secure connection over the internet, ensuring authentication, data confidentiality, and integrity. That's what I explained earlier. However, in traditional TLS, the authentication is one-sided. Did you get that? Authentication is one-sided in traditional TLS, where the server authenticates itself to the client. So the server in itself will do the authentication to the clients. Do you get? The identity of the client is not verified. So that's a problem. There needs to be a two-way handshake where the server explains who he is. This is me. This is my goal. The client will also do the same. So it's a two-way thing. That's why we have MTLS, mutual transport layer security. Okay, so there are different ways to go through all of this. There are different concepts. That's what we're going to talk about. You should be familiar with some of this. If cloud is your thing, if your security is also your thing, you should also be familiar with some of this. Networking too. If you know some networking concepts, this should be very easy for you to grasp. So client authentication is one of those concepts. So this is when a client initiates a connection to an ALB, it presents its digital certificate to authenticate its identity. So there's a certificate there. That's one of those concepts. You use a client certificate to connect to the application load balancer. The second concept or the second way is through server authentication. The ALB verifies the client certificates against a trusted authority, that's a CA, to ensure its authenticity. So you see, there has to be some form of trust in between, and is by presenting certificates. The client presents a certificate, the server presents a certificate. So the ALB authentication. Once the client identity is confirmed, the ALB presents its own digital certificates to the client, right? To authenticate its identity. So now it looks like a three-way thing, right? So and then we have a client verification. Like the client verifies the ALB's certificate against a trusted CA. Yes, yes, yes. Establishing a connection with mutual authentication successfully completed. Connection is established by the client and the ALB, allowing the encryption to take place. So there should be an example here now. This is an example of how we go about this. So we have a cloud environment on AWS, right, in a specific region that has some resources in a VPC. That's what you have on the right. And then on the left, we see the clients there, a browser service or a phone, right? To make that connection, that communication between the client and the ALB, there needs to be that mutual mutual TLS, transport layer security, which is what's happening there, right? And then we see where we have one there. One there has a set of like that's a an S3 bucket, the customer's S3 bucket that probably has the certificate, right? So you import that from the S3 bucket into the VPC, right? So that's why you see a trust store that holds the certification, right? And then in between that trust store and the TLS session, you see it all points down to the ALB. That's where most of all the certification and exchanging and mutual agreement gets in to, and then before you can now have a request sent to the servers or the private subnet that houses the targets, which is the target anyway. So the key thing to note here is a verification mode from the client to the ALB. That line there is where that MTLS is going to operate. So I'm sure you get the idea because we are we're almost at the end of this session. Yes, so if you look at this is a very bulky slide. So we're trying to talk about the key benefits of mutual authentication, right? So security, enhanced security is one of those things. Verifying the identity of both the clients and the servers to prevent unauthorized access. Unauthorized access is the main reason why you have a mutual authentication. The main reason why you have an automatic target wait is to distribute traffic. So another key benefits of mutual authentication is that it's protection against man-in-the-middle attacks. Ernest Odinaka should know a lot about this because he's a security expert. Ensuring secure communication between clients and ALB. That's what it does. Compliance with security standards, meeting regulatory requirements for secure communication protocol. So that image there actually shows how the diagram there shows how this signing on authentication would actually work. So there's a left leaf, there's a root cert, there's a leaf cert, there's a root cert, and then there's an intermediate certification from the load balancer that then authenticates the entire process. So there isn't much to talk about this. We pretty much have covered most of it. MTA and mutual authentication is actually a new feature on AWS. I wanted to add one last slide, but I forgot to add it. That was supposed to be how. Oh my god! That was supposed to explain how to actually implement this. So I'm just going to tell you how to implement this since I missed that slide. So you implement automatic target weights from your target group. So once you go to AWS and let me see if I can share my screen just to show you something. I'm just going to show you a diagram, a screenshot, then you can go and do your own personal research. Give me a minute. Show this. Yeah. So from the target group, you is right there. You can attach a load balancer to your target group, and then from the target group, you can turn on uh, automatic target weight. It's actually just a feature, right? Automatic target weight is achieved by turning on anomaly mitigation, which provides responsive dynamic distribution to traffic to targets based on anomaly detection results. So all HTTPS target groups now include anomaly detection by default. So that's the latest updates. Just to give you the latest updates, that's the latest update actually. We've covered it, but to do a I I hope did you see my screen? Did you see the screen I shared? I'm not sure if that was on stage. Let me do that again. I'm not sure if that was shared on stage. It wasn't. Oh my god.
Yeah,
Ernest. Oh, I just put it there
yeah, I
now.
can see it now.
I just put it. Okay, so here where I was talking about, I didn't even know it wasn't being shared. Like you go to your target group and you can find your target group under EC2. And in that EC target group, if you check the details, you can attach a load balancer there. And that's where you see how you can attach the new feature, which is the automatic target weights, right? You can do it from there. So it's quite straightforward. Just so you know, it's actually a feature, not like a standalone thing. It's meant to is meant to do a specific thing, which is to enhance the security, availability of your load balancer, right? Through a target group. Okay, so that's what it's trying to do: security, scalability, and the high availability of that load balancer, right? And we talked about mutual authentication, which is really about using MTLS protocol to to mitigate uh, to mitigate any form of security vulnerability, you know. So between the clients and the server and the load balancer, there is an MTLS communication there. And the reason why we have MTLS is because the regular TLS, which is common, is actually a one-way handshake, one-way authentication. And that one-way authentication, right, um, just creates, no, the client only submits a certificate. The client submits a certificate to the load balancer, but the load balancer doesn't do any form of authentication for itself. So with these new features now, the client brings a certificate, the client side, the server side brings a certificate, the load balancer then checks those certificates to be sure that this is a very secure connection, right? So this is a security thing. That's what we're talking about. So that's basically all of it. That's all I have for you today. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mr. David. I mean, we learned so much basically. We learned so much. So I believe as well this applies to everybody that is joining us live, right? I believe you learned so much. So I don't know if maybe you have questions. I mean, I'm actually looking out in the comment section, especially on YouTube, to look out for questions. I mean, but regardless, let's say you're watching the recording, you can always reach out to us to ask us more questions. We have is I don't know if the LinkedIn our LinkedIn handle is showing up basically. So okay, right. So I mean, you can always you are seeing his name, right? David Ukoime, you can always reach out to him on LinkedIn. I'm asking further questions. You can always reach out to me. Then remember to follow us on LinkedIn as well. Right. Let me pull up the
Yeah, we didn't ask if they actually have questions.
yes, that's what I'm saying now. Okay, maybe if you have questions, maybe you indicate. I believe I can bring them up live, or I'm also checking the comment sections both on YouTube here on Restream. Don't know. So, is there any question from anybody? Yes, Mayo, I can see you're welcome. Right. Uh, so I believe no questions for now.
Okay, that's that proves that everyone understood what I was trying to pass. So it's nothing hard. I mean,
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, you also have people that watch recordings. It's not everybody that might, join on live and all. So we'll be expecting more questions. Could be on your Twitter or your YouTube, or sorry, could be, yes, you have a channel on YouTube or your LinkedIn. We're expecting more questions, and please follow us. I'm trying to bring up our link on. I don't think I can find that here. Maybe you help me, right? So please, you can follow us on LinkedIn, AWS West Africa User Group, and as well on X, on Instagram, and I mean, you can also be part of us if you want to join the AWS User Group team, right? You can also be part of us basically. So thanks everybody for your time on the call. I mean, it was super amazing learning with everybody. And thanks so much, Mr. David, our amiable speaker. I mean, you broke down everything and it was much more understandable. So, right. So, I believe we'll be having another session for next week, right? So if you are not like subscribed to our YouTube, you could as well subscribe. AWS West Africa User Group, I believe. Yes, that's the name. If you go over AWS Cloud Security User Group, yes, that's the name on YouTube. You could as well subscribe, watch the recording again. And if you have questions, we are always revisiting the comment section. You can drop the questions, and I mean, you have to subscribe then for you to be notified on the next session. So thanks everybody for your time today on the session. Thank you, Mr. David. Right. It was amazing learning from you, right? So till next week, everybody, let's keep learning.